is not something that we very frequently come across.
Indented handwriting analysis.
Indented writing are those impressions that are left behind when somebody writes on a page above.
Forensic dentistry. Facial reconstruction. And maybe a little help from above.
To have the skull show up in that time frame, and to finally have that one key piece of evidence. If that doesn't make you believe in a higher being, then nothing will.
In every detective's career, one case stands out as unforgettable. Crime scenes so bizarre they defy logic. And criminal minds so conniving they defy understanding. To get to the truth, it will take extreme forensics. January 11th, 2001, 7 a.m. At a local restaurant in the tiny town of Bellevue, Iowa, Greg May and his new girlfriend Janet Barnes are planning out their future together. Greg, 55, is a successful tattoo artist. Greg's had relationships with other women since his divorce from his first wife, but this one seems serious.
He'd always had girlfriends from the time he was divorced for the most part. I'd always hoped he'd find somebody that would be compatible with him for the rest of his life.
Janet Barnes lives half an hour away in Galena, Illinois, and she's excited about building a future with Greg. In fact, they've already made plans to save some money and move to Florida in a month. In the meantime, Greg asks Janet to move in with him.
Really?
Okay. Janet rushes home, finishes packing, and loads up the car. By late afternoon, she's standing on Greg's doorstep, ready to begin her new life.
She returns to Bellevue at about 6:30 p.m. on January 11th. And when she arrives at the residence, she knocks on the front door. She receives no answer, but then she goes to a window which is adjacent to the front door, and she's able to look through the apartment to the back part of the apartment, which is where the kitchen is located.
But something's not right. Greg is seated at the kitchen table, and one of Greg's roommates, Julie Johnson, is pacing back and forth. Instantly, Janet senses that something is terribly wrong. In a state of panic, she rushes to the back door to find another way in.
Hello?
Again, no one would respond. And at that time, she noticed that the shade had been pulled on the back door, which was never ever closed.
Her mind is spinning.
Yeah, great.
Why is Greg ignoring her? Surely he couldn't have got cold feet so quickly. Maybe he'll answer the phone.
Then she
Good.
returned back
Let's
downtown and used the telephone.
You
to
win,
call the
I don't
house.
kill you. I win,
No
you're
one
dead.
answered, so then she returned back to
Who
the
do you
house
think's
one more
gonna
time and heard a loud banging noise in the upstairs bedroom above the front door. And again, she knocked on the door and no one would answer. At that point, she left.
Janet has had bad experiences with men before, so it's no surprise that her first thoughts are of rejection. Thinking Greg might need some space, Janet waits a week, then calls the house, hoping for an explanation. She finds only Greg's roommate, Julie Johnson, available to take her call.
Julie picked up the phone
Hello?
and told her that Greg May had left town, had gone to Chicago to visit a friend, and he had changed his mind and that he did not want the girlfriend to go down with him to Florida.
As far as Janet is concerned, the relationship is over. Greg's son Don lives in California and isn't able to see his dad very often. But father and son remain close and usually talk by phone every week. So when the calls stop coming in February 2001, Don becomes worried.
The first time that I was concerned about my father's safety and whereabouts was right around mid-February, when we began to try to contact him by phone, and his phone had been disconnected.
Don suspects his father's two roommates, Doug Johnson and his wife Julie, may have something to do with his dad's unusual behavior. Greg and Doug met back in the 70s. Greg already an established tattoo artist, and Doug wanting to learn the trade. They had remained friends ever since. Greg had agreed to let Doug and Julie move into his finished basement 6 months earlier. Right from the start, tensions began to simmer.
My father didn't mince words. He described Julie as a sneaky bitch. And that's a lot coming from my father, who was not prone to profanity.
Still, Doug remained one of Greg's closest friends, though they couldn't have been more different. Everybody said Greg was the type of guy who paid his bills on time and took great pride in his work. As for Doug, he was considered a loose cannon.
My father had a tendency, he could feel sorry for people. He decided Doug was a decent enough person that he would stand by him as a friend, and that was my father's personality.
Greg May wasn't just compassionate, he was also wealthy.
The other side of his personality, which
We
he really
ain't
lived
find
for,
out
was
'cause it's about to take
quite the Civil War
15
too,
minutes.
and a passion for the American Civil War.
Don suspects that Greg's vast collection is valued at
I
more
can
than
go in any state I want to go
$250,000.
into, Stephen.
That's more than enough motive.
You cross
for
state
murder.
lines.
Panicked, Don files
If
a
it was
missing
on my
persons
way to
report with the
Montana,
local
sure the
police
fuck
department.
did.
He then hops on a plane for Iowa, now certain something bad has happened
I
to
mean,
his father.
any FBI
The chief of
agents
police,
between
Rick
here
Schwager,
and
the
Montana,
case is anything
here in
but
Oklahoma
business as
City,
usual.
Texas,
I've
here
been
in
a police
Reno,
chief
Nevada,
since 1993.
can go through
Well,
any of
it's
your
a typical small town,
documentation.
quiet,
Because when I
peaceful,
was
very
in
scenic
walking through
community.
Ohio,
Generally,
you
we'll
were
see
raping
the,
me.
the normal
I was
cuts.
in,
We do
you
the
got
traffic
set in the back of my car and
routine
poked me with
police
pins
work.
At
almost
face
all the way to
value, there is
Montana
no
and back.
evidence of foul play.
So any
Yet
state
Chief Schwager also
wants
has a
to
burning hunch that
investigate.
something isn't
There's
right.
nothing you can
He
do
decides to
about it.
contact an old police academy buddy, Special Agent Rick Rom with the Iowa Division
Because
of
I've been in
Criminal
their state
Investigation.
and you were
I've
following
been a
me.
special agent with
So it's a
Division of
crime in
Criminal
their
Investigation
state.
for about 15 years now. The crimes we mostly cover and specialize in are death investigations. Those are the cases that require long-term investigations
And
and
nothing you
require
can do.
certain expertise.
They can
And
say we're
many of the local
FBI
departments
agents
don't
and we're
have either those two, and so they call
working
us
on a
to
human
aid them in
trafficking
their
case in
investigation.
our own state, and we
and
feel
Chief
like one of the
Schwager first
victims
decide
is
to
in
pay a
yours.
visit to Greg May's home. He's not there. Neither
can't.
are his two roommates, Doug and Julie Johnson.
I got
In
Florida
fact,
that
the
can
house already
investigate,
has
Tennessee that can
lieutenants
investigate,
who know nothing
Virginia
of
that
the
can
previous
investigate,
inhabitants.
Detroit that
There
can
was not
investigate,
much information known about the three individuals because they just recently moved
Oklahoma
into
City,
town.
anywhere
And
that
they
Greyhound
disappeared.
bus
They
went,
haven't been seen
any
since January.
FBI agency can come in.
Detectives question neighbors in search of clues.
I don't
It
have an
seems that
arrest
Doug and
warrant.
Julie had sold most of the furniture, packed up their remaining items into a moving
It
truck,
says that I
and hit
reported
the
you for
road.
rape.
The neighbors say they haven't seen them since. Detectives Ron and Schwager are now more eager than ever to talk with the missing couple. But first, they've got to find them.
We didn't have a license plate. We didn't have a VIN number. We didn't have a direction of travel. We knew very little about that particular vehicle.
Myrtle Beach
Not
can
only can
investigate,
investigators
which
not
I
find the
think killed two
vehicle,
people while we
Chief
were
Schwager
there.
and Agent Ron can't find any records of Julie or her husband Doug.
Because that's just Stephen.
They just don't
It probably
exist.
shot in the back of the head execution style, I know, Stephen.
Now, police suspect those aren't their real names, adding yet another layer to an already baffling case.
When you search for someone that's using an alias, you're going to run into dead ends. And that's what we did.
Did Doug and Julie Johnson, or whatever their real names are, have something to do with Greg May's disappearance? Since arriving in Iowa days earlier, Don May had met with police every day about his dad's case.
I got
But
lucky.
work and family
You're a
commitments mean
stalker.
he can't afford to be away from home any longer, and he heads back to Los Angeles.
When it came time to leave, I think that was one of the most heartbreaking moments for me, personally. I hadn't given up hope that he was alive, but when I realized I'd done everything I could do for the moment,
New Mexico, Arizona,
the sensation was one
Washington
of the
State,
One of the
Montana,
challenges was
any state from here to
Did Mr. Ray
Montana,
move
North
Did
Dakota.
he move and specifically not tell his family for whatever
Oh, I
reason?
use my ATM card.
Did he not move
I'm
and did
marked.
something happen to him? If
There's
something
no
happened to him,
way.
who are these people that he lived with? We can't find anything on them.
I use my ATM card to make
There
sure
were
that she
so
couldn't
many
steal
different
my wallet like
possibilities that
he
we
did
had
when
to
I was on
consider
the
at the
bus.
beginning.
And I also use my ATM card because it marks the
Coming
area.
up, a surprising and rarely used reverse paternity DNA test that could
I'm not
turn this
done.
missing persons case into a murder.